It's time for another episode of Survivor Thailand, and last time, the 14 players tribe swapped into 2 new tribes of 7. With the new Ko Pota tribe losing immunity, the writing on the wall seemed very clear for Nora and Luciano, as the other 5 tribe members could have easily teamed up against them. However, after Corey felt closer to Luciano, he convinced his ally, Zaylin, to flip on Trance and Ella. Once Ella and Trance found out about this, they blew things up at Tribal Council. In a last-ditch effort to save herself, Ella tried to convince Nora and Luciano to flip on Corey and Zaylin. In the end, they sided with Corey and Zaylin, voting out Ella in case Trance had another idol up his sleeve. How do things look with Ella now gone? We'll find out soon. It's night 14 in the game, and Ko Pota is back at camp from a long night at Tribal Council. In confessional, Corey says he's pretty satisfied with the last vote since he was able to orchestrate Ella's vote off. He now has a solid alliance with Luciano, Nora, and Zaylin, so the 4 of them will likely make merge at this point. Trance, on the other hand, is toast if they go to another Tribal Council. Trance then says wow multiple times, asking Corey and Zaylin how they feel to be on the very top of this tribe. Corey then smirks and tells Trance to go sleep it off, but Trance says he'd rather have an open discussion about what just happened at Tribal Council. Corey then says he and Ella voted for him, so he sees no valid arguments to be made. Trance then tells Corey that he literally came up to him and told him he's flipping, so that's a valid reason for himself and Ella to then flip on him. He hopes Nora, Luciano, and Sabrina see this as an opportunity to flip on Corey and Zaylin now, since they are both the top dogs of this tribe. In confessional, Luciano laughs to himself as he now sees himself as the actual top dog of the tribe. He controls the fate of everyone else. Corey trusts him, Zaylin trusts him, and Trance has nowhere to go but work with him. This is just delicious to him, and he hopes the drama remains this way so that he's safe another vote. Trance shakes his head repeatedly, telling Corey that he should applaud himself for being this tribe's mastermind. Zaylin then sits with Sabrina, whispering to her how they've officially entered hell with Trance's behavior. Sabrina smirks and says she's already over it. It's the 15th day in the game now, and at Koh Tao, a massive scream echoes the land. That scream coming from Chloe. Immediately, Liesl, Kaylee, and Joe come over to figure out what happened, and Chloe starts freaking out, claiming that she lost her contact lens somewhere. Kaylee covers her face, asking her how she could lose it, and Chloe starts looking around the inside of her tent. In confessional, Joe claims he has never heard anyone scream that loud since his mom gave birth to him. In another confessional, Liesl says she feels really bad for Chloe because losing a contact lens is a huge deal. In a third confessional, Kaylee stares at the camera and says there's no chance Chloe finds her lost lens. She claims that if Chloe ever found an idol in this game, she'd probably lose that too. At least that makes her feel less shady of Chloe in the game, since she can't whip out an idol out of nowhere. Meanwhile, at a far distance from camp, Morgan, Jordan, and Wesley look around for possible idols, and Wesley asks if any of them think the other 4 are plotting against them, and Jordan says absolutely not. He doesn't see those 4 linking up against them. In confessional, Morgan says she feels pretty good waking up on day 15. She not only has a legacy advantage, but also an idol from Koh Tao. She doesn't want to tell anyone about her idol, so when they go searching together, she has to act like she doesn't have it. The only advantage she shared was her legacy advantage with Jordan. She needed to make sure he feels 100% with her and never flips. Morgan then tells Jordan and Wesley that it's probably wise that at least one of them secure the camp so nobody talks behind their backs. She doesn't fully trust Kaylee to keep an eye out. As Chloe continues to search her tent for her contact lens, Joe pulls Kaylee aside, asking her about her thoughts for this next vote. Kaylee says she doesn't know what could happen. Heck, she doesn't even know if they'll need to worry about it, considering they are really good in challenges. In confessional, Joe says he's brewing up a plan to blindside Jordan and Morgan, so of course, he wants to include as many people as he can to make less enemies out of this move. Kaylee is someone he doesn't really know that well, but if he can convince her that the Jordan and Morgan duo needs to go, maybe she'll change her mind about them. Kaylee then tells Joe that there's an obvious name that has been out there recently, that being Liesl's. If Ko Tao were to stay strong, that would be their obvious choice. However, she personally likes Liesl and would rather her stick around. Joe then agrees, claiming how him and Liesl have a great bond so far. If anything, he'd rather keep her around. Kaylee then asks Joe what he thinks about Jordan and Morgan, and Joe shrugs and says he doesn't really talk with them as much. They usually spend more time together. In confessional, Kaylee says she has been thinking of flipping on Morgan and Jordan for the last few days now. Basically, ever since they re-added her to their alliance. It's very clear to her they only want her vote. They lost Corey and Zaylin as numbers, so they want her back in. That's not happening, as long as she can find people who would be willing to vote them out. Kaylee then tells Joe that she's open for voting discussions, but she'd rather wait for after the immunity challenge, if they lose it. Joe then agrees, telling her they'll definitely chat more about it when they need to. As time goes on in the day, Chloe sits in front of the fire, upset that she lost her contact lens. Morgan eventually comes to camp, asking Chloe where everyone went, but Chloe doesn't respond to her. Morgan then decides to look around herself, and in confessional, Morgan admits that something isn't right. She can't find Joe, Kaylee, and Liesl. Chloe is alone at the fire, but she refuses to even look at her right now. Something can't be right, and now she's getting nervous. Morgan then asks Chloe once again if she knows where everyone else went, but Chloe tells Morgan she really doesn't want to talk right now because she lost a contact lens somewhere and cannot find it. Morgan then stands still for a moment and then says she's gonna go look for the rest. Once she leaves, Chloe rolls her eyes and calls this the worst day of her life. As Morgan begins looking around the forest, she notices Kaylee and Joe walking together towards camp, so she hides herself. In confessional, Morgan says she knows exactly what's happening. Kaylee flipped on her once, and she won't give up a chance to do it again. It's very likely her and Joe are scheming to get her or Jordan out, so she needs to figure out her next move with Jordan and Wesley, her two closest allies. Back at Kopoda, Luciano talks with Corey and Zaylin, thanking them for siding with him and Nora to take out Ella. Corey says no problem, telling him it's pretty clear that Ella and Trance were unreliable allies. In confessional, Zaylin says that she doesn't regret taking out Ella on a game level. They were really good friends in the game, but she simply cannot move forward with Trance. Since Ella was close to Trance, it was impossible to get her to flip. Therefore, she just had to follow Corey's lead to get her out in case of an idle play from Trance. Luciano then tells the two that he feels really good about them moving forward and merge as a 3. He wanted this to happen since day one, but they were all on different sides at that time. Corey laughs and says he blames EK for being such a nutcase. Luciano then says he's down to vote out Trance at the next vote, unless they fear of an idol. Zaylin says there's no shot he has the idol at this point. He would have played it for himself last night. Corey agrees and says they are going to keep it simple next time and just unanimously vote him out. As they chat, Trance sits with Sabrina, telling her how he wants to apologize to the people he screamed at last night. He just felt super emotional and his raw reactions came out. Sabrina then asks him if his apologies will be fabricated, since he claims his emotions last night were real, and Trance says his apologies will be real since he evaluated how wrong he was for being upset at them for playing Survivor. In confessional, Trance admits he doesn't give a crap for Corey and Zaylin. They are dead to him in this game after flipping on him and Ella. However, he needs to act like he's apologetic in the case they ever feel like they need him as a number. He feels like there's still a chance to get in with them over Sabrina since Sabrina isn't the most active player. at least from his own eyes. Sabrina then wishes Trance luck with his apologies, since that will probably spark a discussion amongst them. Trance smirks and says he just wants to restart with them. Trance later meets up with Corey and Zaylin, telling them that he just wanted to apologize for his behavior last night. He was survivor drunk, meaning he was emotional from the blind side. In a way, he wishes it was him rather than Ella. Zaylin then apologizes that they didn't vote him out in that case, but she laughs and says she's just kidding. Trance lets them know that he's trying to start fresh with them again. He feels like they kept him over Ella because they still value him as a person. Corey and Zaylin simply nod in response, and Trance goes on to explain how he still sees himself moving forward with them. He can't see a world where he ever works with Sabrina and Nora, the two weakest players on the tribe, and probably in the entire game. Corey and Zaylin remain quiet the whole time, and Trance eventually asks them for their thoughts. Corey says he really doesn't have an answer for him right now. They just recovered from the whole drama yesterday, so they still need time. Trance says he totally understands and doesn't need a direct answer from them yet. In confessional, Corey says he doesn't buy what Trance is selling. He 100% sees a world where Trance goes nuts in the merge and tries to take him out. As of now, there's no way anyone is joining forces with him. Later in the night, Morgan wakes Jordan up from their tent and they step to the side. Jordan, who is half asleep still, asks her what's wrong, and Morgan tells him that she can't sleep whatsoever. She feels like they are being played by Kaylee right now. In confessional, Jordan admits he barely paid attention to anything Morgan was telling him because it was the middle of the night. However, he heard something about them being played, so he had to make sure he took down as many mental notes as possible. Morgan then explains that she saw Joe and Kaylee walking and talking earlier today, and that hasn't left her mind. Plus, Chloe refused to speak with her, proving to her that Chloe doesn't like her based on her heightened emotions at the time from losing her contact lens. Jordan tries to follow, telling Morgan to slow down a bit. Morgan then puts it in simpler terms. She says she thinks Kaylee, Joe, and Chloe are trying to get the votes against them. Jordan then tells Morgan to leave this conversation for tomorrow because he can't do this right now, and Morgan apologizes to him for waking him up this late. In confessional, Morgan feels like Jordan barely wants to listen to her, which is frustrating. He isn't seeing what she's seeing. Her only hope right now is that Ko Tao wins tribal immunity so they don't have to worry about any potential flips. It's day 16, and both tribes arrive to the challenge mats. Ko Tao then figures out that Ella was last voted out from Ko Poda, and Lizel immediately looks down, trying to avoid making any emotional expressions on her face. Justin then takes back the immunity statue from Ko Tao and goes on to explain the next challenge. In today's challenge, everyone must go to the ocean to pick up a bucket of water. They will then transport the bucket of water to their tribe's container. The goal is to get the weight meter all the way to maximum. The first tribe to do this will win immunity, safe from the vote. In addition, they will be playing for reward. The winning tribe will send one member from their tribe to the loser's tribal council to spectate. Justin then asks Ko Tao to sit someone out, and they all agree Chloe will sit. Everyone else then gets ready on their mats, and Justin counts them down. Once begun, everyone rushes to the shore to collect their water. Many of the faster people make it to shore first and then immediately run back. Many trips later, Ko Tao and Ko Poda are tied up with the same amount of water in their containers. Many people begin walking from exhaustion, but Jordan, Wesley, Trance, and Corey continue pushing through the exhaustion. At some point, Liesl sits down, unable to run anymore, and Nora stands around as she tries catching her breath. More minutes later, Ko Poda takes a short lead over Ko Tao, but not by much. Liesl then sits back down again, and Nora decides to join her this time, telling her they could both just quit this challenge together if they don't want to get yelled at later. Trance then walks by and tells Nora to get up and go, and Nora exhales and decides to continue the challenge. Liesl then gets up to do the same since Nora just got up. As more time passes, Ko Poda gets closer to the finish over Ko Tao, and after Zaylin pours another bucket into their container, the maximum has been reached. This means Ko Poda has won immunity and reward, safe from tribal council tonight. Trance falls on the ground, exhausted but relieved. Everyone eventually reaches the mats again and Justin congratulates Ko Poda on their win. He hands them the immunity statue and claims that someone from Ko Tao will be the 8th person voted out tonight. Ko Poda will get the afternoon to figure out which of their members will come spectate tribal council. They won't vote and they'll be safe. With that, everyone makes their way back to camp, and in confessional, Joe claims that tonight will be a big night for Ko Tao. They might be able to pull off a big move on Jordan and Morgan and take one of them out. This just continues to solidify his own position in the game since he wants to move forward with Chloe, Wesley, Liesl, and perhaps even Kaylee now. He just needs Kaylee to be on board for this plan, so she's a 5th number for him. At Ko Tao camp, everyone stands around, feeling a bit defeated by the close loss. Jordan expresses his frustration with that loss, unable to take it well, and everyone else looks visibly uncomfortable by his attitude. In confessional, Liesl says that it's very clear Jordan is pissed off by the loss, and he's probably going to blame it on her for sitting down mid-challenge. However, she doesn't care if that's the case. He's likely going home tonight and there's nothing he can do to her. Jordan then says they were so close to winning, but now he has to get over it. Joe tells him to chill, claiming that it's just one loss. Morgan agrees with Joe and tells Jordan to stop acting up. A bit later, people begin to scramble around as they chat about the next vote, and Joe brings together Chloe and Liesl, confirming that they are voting for Jordan tonight. Liesl thanks God and thanks Joe for making this happen because she cannot stand living with Jordan another day. In confessional, Joe admits that his main worries would be Kaylee and Wesley. On one hand, he knows how close Wesley is to Morgan and Jordan. Then, with Kaylee, she doesn't give much of her game to anyone. Himself, Liesl, and Chloe cannot pull off this move on Jordan without a 4th number, so they need to make sure Wesley is in on this plan at the very least. In the meantime, Morgan talks with Wesley and Jordan, informing them that she's sketched out by Kaylee. She doesn't feel like she's with them anymore. Jordan asks her if she's sure about this, and Morgan says she's very sure. It makes a lot of sense for Kaylee to flip on them. In confessional, Jordan says he doesn't have a proper read on Kaylee ever since she flipped on Morgan at the Peter vote. To be fair, she thought everyone was voting Morgan that time, but he flipped things around. Still, that's a reason for Kaylee to want him or Morgan out right now, so he isn't listing this possibility as impossible. Later on, Liesl chats with Kaylee at camp, asking her if she has any ideas what will happen with this vote. Kaylee then claims that Jordan and Morgan have been pushing her name, and Liesl smirks in response. She claims it's not a shock since they don't vibe with her. Kaylee then lets her know she's not going to side with them tonight because she has wanted Morgan out for some time now. Liesl then tells her that there's one issue with this. Joe really wants Jordan gone, and personally, she herself wants him gone as well. In confessional, Liesl says that everyone is getting closer and closer to merge. Now is the best time to take out the physical threats. Jordan is way more threatening in a variety of challenge types, while Morgan is mainly strength-based. She'd much rather take Morgan to merge, especially as a juror since Jordan has something against her. Kaylee then sighs and says she would much rather vote for Morgan, but if they are voting for Jordan first, that's fine too. In confessional, Kaylee says she'll do either of the two people who played in her face before, that being Morgan and Jordan. Although she'd love it to be Morgan, she will let this slide this one time and gun for Jordan first. Joe then finds Wesley alone, telling him that discussions have been leading to Jordan as the next boot. Wesley nods and asks who is in on this plan, and Joe says everyone except for Jordan and Morgan. Wesley then asks if that includes Kaylee, and Joe nods. In confessional, Wesley says he's pretty surprised Kaylee is flipping on Jordan and Morgan without confirming it with him. He thought they were pretty close together. Clearly not. If there are already 4 votes for Jordan, he doesn't have much he can do to help them. Does he want to flip? No. He'd rather stay loyal. Wesley then tells Joe he's good with this plan, and Joe smiles in reaction. As the afternoon goes by, more and more chats pile on for Jordan to go home. At one point, Kaylee brings up Morgan's name to Joe and Liesl, but Liesl says she'd much rather take out Jordan first. She doesn't feel like Morgan can manipulate anyone while Jordan can easily work with Corey in the merge as 2 bro-type personalities. In confessional, Liesl says she's going to need Kaylee to back up a little bit with pushing her own preference. She gets she wants Morgan out bad, but she doesn't have a choice. If she decides to flip to work with the 2 flippers themselves, that's on her. She can't save her at that point. It's way better for her to stick with the 5-person crew and vote Jordan out. In another confessional, Kaylee says she doesn't necessarily feel right about voting out Jordan. If Joe, Liesl, and Chloe are super desperate to have their way, maybe it's not the right time to flip on Morgan and Jordan. Maybe it's best to just stick to the plan and take out Liesl. Liesl isn't the same after this swap. It's super evident in her actions. It's now night 16, and Ko Tao sits down at tribal council. Justin welcomes them and calls in the one Ko Pota member who was decided on to join tonight's tribal and spectate it. Then, Corey walks in and sits down, and everyone says hello to him. Justin then starts up tonight's chat by asking Morgan what she thinks about Ko Pota sending Corey to watch this tribal play out, and Morgan says she's not surprised. Corey has been here before and knows most people, so he's probably the most curious to see what goes down here. Justin then turns to Kaylee, asking her if that means Corey is potentially more loyal to some of them who have been on his tribe before, and Kaylee says she doesn't really think that's the reason he's here. She personally feels like Corey carried Ko Pota to victory, so they rewarded him by sending him here. Joe claims it's pretty interesting to him that they agreed Corey should come, considering that it could gain him game information. He wonders how the choosing process went down. Everyone then turns to Joe, and Justin asks him if he's questioning their decision for picking Corey in particular, but Joe reframes his answer and says he's just curious how they chose who should come. He's not specifically thinking about why Corey was chosen over others. He has nothing personal against him. Jordan then speaks up, claiming how different this tribal council could result, considering how someone is watching their every move now. Justin claims it's pretty interesting, asking Wesley if he's worried about what is shown to Corey tonight. Wesley says it matters in a way since he can spread whatever narrative he wants to his tribe back at camp. Joe then turns to Wesley, asking him if he means it doesn't matter in that case, since coming up with a random narrative means anything that happens tonight doesn't matter if it can be all made up. Wesley says it mainly matters because Corey can't go back and straight up lie. The truth would really come out in merge once everyone reunites. Justin then asks Liesl if tonight's vote is impacted by this little twist, but Liesl says no. She feels like things are still lined up to be the same, with or without Corey sitting up there. Kaylee agrees, claiming that she's fairly certain everyone here tonight is voting to improve their individual games. The merge is coming closer and closer, so everyone is less concerned about what the other tribe thinks. Justin then turns to Morgan, asking her if that also means tonight's vote is based on the merge factor, and Morgan says absolutely. She wants to surround herself with people she can trust and take out the person she cannot trust in this game. Justin asks Liesl if that's the same with her, and Liesl nods. She adds that she obviously has to think about her survival for tonight and make sure she gets through tonight first, but every decision also has to be thought about for the long run. Joe then adds that it's important to not only keep yourself happy, but your allies happy. You can't work as an alliance if you don't make each other feel satisfied. Morgan agrees and says she'd never want to lose an ally over their perception of her. Justin then asks Wesley if tonight's potential result will impact any relationships between anyone, and Wesley says it'll simply strengthen many relationships rather than tank them. At least he hopes. Kaylee adds that it's not a simple game, so you almost can never expect things to work your way. Sometimes, a person will be upset with you, regardless if it feels random and weird. You have to learn to get through it and adapt. Or perhaps resolve that issue with the person. Justin then says it's a great time to get to this vote, so everyone prepares for it.
I'll tally the votes. If anyone has a hidden immunity idol and they want to play it, now would be the time to do so. Morgan has decided to use her hidden immunity idol tonight. And she's playing it on Jordan. Any votes for Jordan tonight will not count. I'll read the votes. First vote. Jordan. Does not count. 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 2 votes left. Joe. That's 1 vote Joe, 1 vote left. 8th person voted out of Survivor Thailand. Joe.
Everyone immediately drops their jaw, and Joe laughs, flabbergasted by this result. Chloe then gets up to hug Joe, and Jordan tells Morgan she's a genius. Morgan breathes out and admits she made a lucky guess with that idol play. Liesl then turns to Chloe, whispering to her that she thinks one of Kaylee or Wesley spilled this vote to Morgan and Jordan. Joe then sets his torch down next to Justin, and Justin snuffs his torch. Joe then pieces out, howling to the rest and wishing them a lot of fun for the rest of their time here. Chloe and Liesl say goodbye to him while Morgan continues to smile with Jordan. Justin then tells everyone to head back to camp, so they all follow through and leave. As they do, Morgan asks Wesley why he flipped, and Wesley says they'll chat later. Next time on Survivor Thailand, Morgan and Jordan search for answers from Wesley and Kaylee after they flipped and voted for Jordan. However, they aren't the only two questioning them, as Liesl and Chloe begin to believe that one of Kaylee or Wesley spilled the plan to Jordan and Morgan, causing the idol play to work. On Koh-Poda, Corey begins to spiral in his gameplay, starting to feel like it might be better to keep Trance around. However, will Zaylin be satisfied to flip back and work with Trance? Find all of this out in the next episode. Joe's final thoughts. Joe admits he isn't upset in the slightest for getting idled out of the game. It's actually a surreal thing to experience. He has no clue how he got out, so perhaps Morgan is a genius and clocked they were all voting for Jordan. Or, maybe Wesley or Kaylee tipped them off. He didn't expect Morgan to have an idol, let alone play one on Jordan, so he got way too comfortable and thought he could work with 70% of the tribe. Now that he's out, he's ready to munch on a big, fat, juicy burger. It better be ready for him,